So are you going to join the new coalition that's being talked about?
I have very serious misgivings about all this talk about coalitions and all this jumping from one place to another one. I think these are signs of just how degenerated the political process has become. And it's a very sad thing for Nigeria today, as we speak, a country that has never faced more problems than we have, that its leadership entirely, the whole spectrum of leadership, is all running around looking for places to continue to run the country aground.
Well, I think your term, to many people, described it well. I mean, it's a very insular, inward-looking group that just sort of talk to themselves.
The politicians.
That's the impression, yeah, people have.
The entire politicians, all of them.
I mean, it's extraordinary, really.
Without any difference. Everyone, those in government, those trying to get into the government, those jumping guns and ship, and those looking for coalitions, the whole lot. I mean, you can count the number of politicians who are literally holding the country to ransom. It's in political science, we call it state capture. There are not more than 2,000 Nigerians who are running this country politically. And it's all about them.
It's extraordinary,
it's
really,
all about them. It is worrying more for the country because the way we are headed, it's going to be either we have a choice between the bad and the worse. There's absolutely no difference. They have no shame. I'm sorry to use this word. Our politicians have no shame. And you leave this party today, and tomorrow you move into another one. And if you were to ask, someone were to ask you, well, what has changed? The only thing that has changed is your party. You're the same person,
absolutely,
hobnobbing with the same kind of people, and the only people who you have no respect for is 99.9% of Nigerians.
The people who give you the power.
So it's all about them. It's all about keeping power or getting the power you lost. And it's all about milking the country. And so long as these guys are going to continue to be the people who determine the fate of this country, I'm afraid we're going to continue going downwards.
Is that why your advice to the president at the top of the pecking order, if you like, of sort of the political structure is to step aside and not seek re-election in 2027?
Absolutely. I honestly and sincerely believed that if I had sat down with President Tinubu before I left, that is what I would have said to him. I would have said to him, President Tinubu, I think you achieved a lifetime ambition. It was lifetime. He had done great things to become president. He had done great things to make other presidents. It had worked. It hadn't worked in the past. Finally, it worked. He had done many things for this country. The best thing he can do is not to run in for 2027. The best thing he can do now is to look around, get good people, to find younger people, 50 people in their 40s and 50s and 60s, people with a lot of experience. They exist. People with passion and anger in them and the zeal to actually rebuild this country, to give it a future, and step aside. He can do that with his party. The moment the APC brings out a Nigerian who is in their 40s, in his 40s, believe me, other parties will do the same thing. Because no presidential candidate in his 80s or late 70s is going to start contesting for the presidency with somebody in his 40s. It has happened before, and we need to begin to show some respect for the young Nigerians. We have messed up their country and our grandchildren. We've messed up their country enough. And we need to have some faith in younger Nigerians. They can fix this country. So there are two things. President Tinubu can choose to run or not to run. And in my letter, I said, if you run, you can win. You can win. But I don't see any value. What you will do is you are going to continue to preserve failure and disaster. If you fail and you lose, your successor is going to wipe out everything you did in the last 4 years, within the first 1 month. That is the level of bitterness that exists between this small cycle of politicians. They hate each other. They are together only because they all have to gang up together. They don't want to be accountable for what they did while they were in power. The only way they can remain safe and in their homes is if they are in or near power. They hate each other, but they are forced to stay together. So it's virtually about 3,000 people against every Nigerian. And they are playing the ethnic card. They are telling all Nigerians it's North and South. There's no such thing as North and South anymore. The problems of the Northerner is the problem of the person in the South. And there's no part of the country known that can actually say we can get a presidency now that is ours. Even the Southwest, in spite of what appears to be a favorable disposition towards it, the Southwest cannot claim Tinubu.
So you've heard it. There are only two classes of Nigerians, the politicians and the rest of us. But let's get this thing straight. I've been talking about this same thing that Hakeem Baba-Ahmed. This is Dati Baba-Ahmed's brother, Peter Obi's running mate in 2023 election. And he was one of those politicians that served under the Bola Tinubu's administration for the vice president as political advisor or something like that. But he said a lot of nuggets he gave us. Number one is that Bola Tinubu running for 2027 and possibly winning 2027 election is a preservation of failure and disaster. Meaning, this administration is a failure, is a disaster. And if he runs and he wins, it's just to preserve that failure and that disaster. There's this other part that he said that is quite alarming. There are only 2,000 to 3,000 politicians running this country. 2,000 to 3,000 politicians holding this country in ransom. And it's for their own selfish good, their own selfish reason. They need power to stay safe because they know what they've done to the country and they're not ready to give account for the things that they did while they were in office. But before we break this thing down, if you're meeting this content for the first time, like, share, and subscribe. If you've been following us and you've not subscribed, please do so and recommend this channel to others. And make sure you watch this to the end. We've been campaigning on this channel for a while. We've been talking about the fact that our politicians have ruined our country for us. This is one person who just came off of Bola Tinubu's administration telling you now, he worked for Bola Tinubu, is telling you now that the government is a failure. He's telling you now that our politicians don't care for us. All they care for is their own selfish ambition. He's telling every one of us right now that we have to get up, rise against the political elite. We need to vote them out. Yes, it's a difficult task, but it is possible because it's been done before in 2015. Bola Tinubu contesting for 2027 election is a failure. It's just to preserve his failures. The man, first of all, does not have the stamina to lead Nigeria. He does not have the zeal anymore to lead Nigeria. What is an 88-year-old or 80-something-year-old man going to be leading Nigeria for? Look at every other African country where 80-something-year-old men are leading the country. The country is backward. The country is backward. Our politicians don't care for you. Listen, for all of you guys who come online to troll political commentators like myself, they don't care for you. They can pay you peanuts to come and abuse other people online. But you and I are suffering the same thing. We cannot travel the roads. We cannot buy the things that we used to buy before. We are not safe. Our money has no value. But they keep stealing the country and milking the country. Exactly what Hakeem Baba-Ahmed said. Our politicians, he said this clearly. Our politicians hate themselves. They hate each other. But they're only together just for their self-preservation. They don't like each other. When they jump from one party to another, they don't like themselves. But they need power. The reason why a Wike will sell out a river state for Nigeria to get power, just to give to Bola Tinubu, so he needs to stay in power because he knows the day he leaves power, that's trouble for him. So they need to stay circling around the power just so that they can stay relevant. The entire spectrum of leadership that we have right now is a complete failure. I'm telling you, if you think this is an isolated case, it is not. This current president is a total failure. I'm saying that. This current government is a total failure. All the people telling us not to bother ourselves. The other day, Festus Keyamo came out and said we shouldn't bother voting. We shouldn't bother waste our time. 2,000 politicians are the ones holding us ransom. 2,000 politicians. If you look at it clearly, that's what it is really. There are 36 states in the country, plus they have FCT. So 36 states, governors and the deputies. Politicians, 2,000 of them, or 3,000 max, are the ones holding the rest of us in ransom. And he said this, so long as these guys are the same persons determining our fate, we're going nowhere. That's why you must come out of it. That's why this campaign, this sensitization is important. That's why we're speaking up. If these guys can successfully keep putting us down, using the police, the military to put us down, 2,000 people holding a country of over 230 million people down. That's why I tell you, if we're thinking we're going to wait for the politicians to amend the electoral law, we're wasting time. If we're thinking they're going to let the judiciary be independent, we're wasting time. We cannot afford to wait for those to happen. It's not going to happen under this Bola Tinubu's administration. This current government is a total failure. And this man here, Hakeem Baba-Ahmed, said it. If Tinubu wins 2027, he's just going to be preserving his failures and his disaster. This is the same person who said to Tinubu, he's just traveling abroad he's governing Nigeria from abroad and for his own personal need. And we know it's all about healthcare. The same person that said he built a modern country, a modern state, doesn't have a modern hospital to go to in Lagos, but he can go to France. An 88-year-old man does not have the zest, the drive, the strength to wake up in the morning like a 40-year-old, 50-year-old, or maybe a 60-year-old person can do. In its time, this man needs to go and be grandparent to his grandchildren and let somebody with the power, the strength to govern the nation with fresh ideas that was forward-looking and prosperous in thinking. Everything about this government is complete and utter failure. Our politicians, he said it, our politicians don't like each other, but they stay around each other because they need to keep themselves. That's why you will see they have the houses all lined up around the same axis. And they have military guys protecting them after they must have still stolen our country dry. They're milking. All they're doing is just to milk the country. Look at the amount of money the Ayabelo stole. Look at the amount of money Okowa is accused of stealing, or allegedly accused of stealing. Look at. So stop coming to campaign for politicians who you know are corrupt. Look at the defections. They're going from one party to another party. They have no reason for doing that, all but for one thing, their own self-preservation, to milk your state, milk our country. We cannot turn a blind eye to this thing anymore. So I'm telling you, wake up. Wake up. The one group of people they've left out is the majority. The one group of people, we the people they've left out. About 2,000 to 3,000 people deciding all of our fates. And yet we're here, we cannot speak up. Yet we're here, when we speak up, they're using from amongst us to fight us. That's why we must intensify the voice of change that we're calling for. We cannot keep quiet. You cannot keep quiet. I'm telling you, the day you keep quiet, that day you've lost your right to be a citizen of Nigeria. Our politicians do the things they do on purpose just to make sure you don't keep quiet. They want you to lose faith in the system so that they can continue to perpetrate their corruption. That's why you must not wait. We must not wait for the government to change the laws of election, our electoral law, our judicial law. We cannot wait for them to do. We have to force it out. We have to campaign, seriously campaign to make sure we get these guys out of the way. From the state to the local government to the federal government. I keep saying it. You need to inspect, scrutinize the policies of each of our politicians. There's no free ride. Whether it's for Bita Obi or Bola Tinubu or Atiku, you need to inspect their policies. Look at what Bola Tinubu policies has brought Nigeria into. Don't keep quiet anymore. We cannot leave our fate in the hands of these criminal government, criminal politicians, criminal lawmakers, criminal National Assembly, criminal judicial system. We cannot leave our fate in their hands anymore. They've ruined our country. They've run our country aground. They've milked our country, and they've taken our monies and taken them to the Western world to go and invest the money in there. Why are you keeping quiet? Why aren't you speaking about it? Why aren't you sharing this content? Why aren't you telling your brothers in the villages so that they know they don't have to sell their votes? Because they're also suffering the insecurity as we're suffering it too. We cannot travel the road to the villages. They cannot travel the road to the cities. How do you think that Nigeria is looking? This is a complete, utter failure of a government. So I'm stressing this here today. Having watched this and you've watched as well, make sure you don't keep quiet. Let's intensify the reasons why we must change this government. Tinubu does not have the strength to lead Nigeria. Certainly not. An 80-something-year-old man cannot lead Nigeria the way Nigeria needs to be led. Nigeria needs somebody who's strong, vibrant, youthful, fresh ideas, not what we currently have. Again, if you're meeting this content for the first time, like, share, and subscribe. If you've been following us and you've not subscribed, please do so. And also recommend this channel to others. I'll catch you up in the next video. God bless you. Bye-bye for now.